Hey there, my lovelies, and welcome to my booktube channel, The Sassy Library Fox. My name is V, and today I'm finally going for my July wrap-up. It's been ages I sat in front of the cam. I don't even know if I can record videos anymore. So I guess we will have to find out and see. My little one had holidays until yesterday. So it's the first time I'm recording a video ever since. Yeah, please be with me. I don't even know how to do this anymore. Okay, so this out of the way, my July was quite the month. I read more books than I read for a very long time, and I think that's mostly due to the fact that I've become a stress reader. Every time when I have a lot of stress in my life, it seems like I'm just picking up books more and more, and probably it's some sort of counterweight and gives me some sort of balance to flee into different worlds. I think that also reflects in the choice of books I read, because they are all totally and completely different genres. And yeah, I guess I just needed an escape from the month that was July. I was looking for a new job. I applied. I had a lot of job interviews. I had to get things settled with the insurance and with my old company because they forgot to tell them I resigned. And yeah, it were a lot of things to do at the beginning of July, things to sort out and things to get on track. And then one of my family members, a very close family member, died in the middle of July. It wasn't unexpected. We already expected it. I said it in one of my former videos, but it was still a loss that kind of threw my entire family. And yeah, because of that, I even had to pause with one of my body reads. And well, I'm still not over the loss. It will take a long time until everything will be back to normal, or it never will be back to normal with that family member gone, but we are learning to deal with it and to carry on. So yeah, my July was quite a stressful time, but I found a new job and I've been busy since 1st of August with the new job. So yeah, it was just a lot. July was a lot. Yeah. And because of that, I read many different books, and I read 5 books in total, and a lot of them even got really high ratings. So I think we will just jump into it and talk about the books I read. And I wrote it down because it's too hot to think right now. You can already see it in my choice of clothes. We have about 27 degrees in my flat right now, and the heat wave continues. So yeah, it will get even hotter, probably, most definitely. Anyway, back to the books I read in July. The first book I read in July was Heartstopper, which is actually a graphic novel and not a book, but yeah, cut me some slack there. And it was volume 4 from Heartstopper, and I really liked that one. I enjoyed it so much. What I loved about this volume is that it had a way darker tone and setting than the other first 3. There are a lot of serious topics that built up over the last 3 volumes and came to the peak in volume 4. We have a really great and good mental health representation. All the things that were talked about in the first 3 volumes regarding Charlie's mental health were tackled in this one. It had a really strong focus on mental health representation. And I think it was done so well because it didn't just show the struggles of Charlie and of Tori, but it also showed how the family members are affected by a person or a family member who has mental health problems. And this was done so realistically and so good and in such a sensitive manner that it was just really great to read about. And the second focus of that graphic novel and volume 4 was clearly on Nick coming out to his family and to his friends. And I appreciated the way Alice Oseman tackled this. And I've just finished watching season 2 of Heartstopper on Netflix, and I honestly, this is one of the best graphic novel to series adaptations ever. It's done so well, and Alice Oseman just has a way to address difficult and important topics in a manner that is so good and done so well. Yeah, I won't say more about volume 4 and about the Netflix series, but I enjoyed both of them, and I really appreciated that Alice Oseman took her time to build that storyline as well and to tackle those important topics and to give them room. Okay, and oh yeah, I probably should have told you how many paws I gave this. I gave it 5 paws. Of course, I gave it 5 paws. Did anyone expect anything differently? Okay, so let's get away from Heartstopper and write to a completely different genre and book, and it's Finlay Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cosimano. And this book, I read it as a buddy read with Bia at Mama Needs to Read Romance, and Bia and I had such a fun time reading this book. It was hilarious. Our voice messages mostly started with chuckling and laughing about what happened in this book. It was wild. It was so wild, honestly. It kind of reminded me of the Stephanie Plum novels by Chani, if you know them. But Finlay Donovan is even more chaotic and way, way darker. She is totally morally grey, and Bia and I often said that she's really morally grey and that she does a lot of things we wouldn't do. Yeah, but yeah, she did them. And where Finlay's moral compass is at least morally grey because she always thinks about her family first and about her kids, Vero's moral compass is basically non-existent. Vero is definitely morally dark. I honestly can't wait to read book 2 with Bia in September. We already said we would read book 2 as a buddy read as well because we had such a blast with our buddy read and we want to know how this continues. But if you don't know what Finlay Donovan is about, it's basically about Finlay Donovan, who is a writer and has 2 kids. She's a single mom because her ex-husband Steven cheated on her and has a new fiancé. And she is trying to juggle her work and her writing with her children, and it's not going well. She didn't earn any money in the last couple of months. She has a lot of bills to pay, and so she meets with her agent and talks about her book and the plans she has for the plot. And after that, a woman comes to her and hands her a note on a napkin. And it's basically an order to murder her husband. And yeah, things kick off from there and it gets really wild. And honestly, the situations Finlay gets herself in are wow. And I love the dynamic of her and Vero. Vero is her babysitter, but she gets involved in the entire murder thing. And it was just great. And the 2 love interests were really interesting as well. One of them is Nick, a cop who solves murder cases. He's a detective. And the other one is Julian, a law student who also has the hots for Finlay. So those 2 love interests were very different, but both extremely interesting and intriguing. And I can't wait to find out what is going to happen in book 2. But yeah, I guess we will have to wait for this. I gave Finlay Donovan 4 paws and I don't regret it. It was a great book and it deserved the 4 paws. And Bia and I are totally looking forward to our buddy read in September. Okay, this was book 2. The third book I read was a completely different kind of genre because it was Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. And Piranesi is some sort of, how would I describe it? It's really hard to describe because this book has been recommended to me by so many people and everyone said I should read it. It is amazing, it is great. And then I finally decided I would give it a try, I would give it a go, and I read the book and it was amazing. I read it during my vacation. I was on vacation in Austria for a couple of days after my aunt died, and I took the book with me because it was 250 pages and I thought I could get through it in the short holidays because it wasn't huge and it weren't many pages, and I actually rushed through it because I wanted to know what would happen next. And as for the plot, Piranesi is basically about a man named Piranesi who lives in a house, and that house has no inhabitants except of him and the other. And the other is a man in his 50s or 60s, I don't know. And those two are the only inhabitants of the house except of a couple of skeletons. And there is an ocean at the bottom of the house, and there are floods, and there are different halls and rooms in that house, and Piranesi is kind of exploring them and helping the other to map out the house. And one day a 16th person appears and the other wants Piranesi of 16. Yeah, but as you know, curiosity kills the cat and things get in motion from there on out. I don't want to say any more about the plot. This is basically what's written on the blurb and I will leave it at that, but the book was amazing. I enjoyed it so much. It was really, I think it's in the genre of magical realism or so. It's great. I loved it. I loved Piranesi's character. He was kind of childlike and innocent and pure at heart, and I loved it about him. And to see things through his eyes was really interesting. Yeah, I think I won't say anything anymore because I don't want to spoil anything. And if you want to read this book, go for it. I loved it. I gave it 4.5 paws. And the only reason it didn't get that final half paw to make it 5 paws is the fact that it's one of those books you can read once and then you'll be done with it. So 5 paws is basically reserved for the books I know I will reread again and again, and I know I won't reread this book. Once was enough, and yeah. Okay, the next book I read in July is something completely different as well. It is The Stationery Shop of Tehran by Marjan Kamali, and this book was interesting. It's in the genre of historical fiction. I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. But I also had some difficulties with it. I read it with Rachel at Rachel's Reading Nook. We did a buddy read of this one. It was the buddy read I had to interrupt and to stop because of the death in the family. And then we continued to read separately. I thought Rachel already finished the book because it took me about 2 weeks or so to pick it up again, but Rachel hadn't finished it yet. So the ending of our buddy read was a little bit chaotic. I'm sorry for that, Rachel. I'm really, really sorry. But yeah, life was a little bit crazy, and thank you for being so understanding. And yes, this said, back to the book. It's basically the love story of Roya and Baman. And Roya and Baman meet at a stationery shop in Tehran and fall in love and start to date, and they want to get married at the end of summer. But then there happen some riots. It's placed in the year of 1953, and the the government, or let's say the democracy, is toppled down and the Shah takes over and life changes a lot, and Roya and Baman lose contact and don't see each other anymore. Their wedding is cancelled by Baman and Roya doesn't understand why, and she goes to America to get a better education and to get some distance to all the happenings. And yeah, the book has a very confusing timeline. It plays in different timelines, and I think it jumps with the chapters, and this was a little bit jarring for me to read because we are right smack in the future with Roya at the beginning of the book, and then we suddenly land in the year 1953 in Tehran and her life there and how she got to know Baman, and then it jumps in the future again to her and her current husband named Water, and we jump back in time once again to former days before they met in 1953, and it was so confusing. I think the time jumps were quite jarring sometimes, and for a couple of moments you didn't know which person the story was about, and yeah, that was a little confusing, I gotta say. Also, I think I'm not one to read historical fiction. I'm always too far away with the writing style. The writing style is always told from an outsider's perspective and you don't feel with the characters. And I heard people cry buckets of tears with this book, but I didn't. Either I'm emotionally, I don't know, not emotional enough, or it's just the writing style of historical fiction that doesn't work for me. I think it's the latter. And yeah, I don't know if I want to pick up all too many historical fiction books anymore. I think not a lot of authors work for me when it comes to this. Except of Ken Follett. I love Ken Follett. Anyway, that's not the point. The story jumped quite a lot. It was a little bit jarring. I couldn't connect to the characters all that much. It was a really nice and lyrical writing style sometimes. I enjoyed the book, but I can't give it more than 3 paws. I just had too much trouble to connect with the characters, I think. Yeah, you might say it like that. And yeah, also I didn't like that Roya's new husband, Walter, was some sort of a rebound for her. I know the reader is supposed to believe that she loves Walter in her own way, but for me it was pretty clear that she loved Baman still and that Walter was just the guy she chose to, I don't know, rebound, build her life around, because she knew he was solid and reliable, and Walter deserved so much more than that. Yeah, that's my stance on things. And I totally didn't like Baman's mother for various reasons. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't the best book I ever read, and it wasn't the worst book either. 3 solid paws, and that's about it. And last but not least, the 5th book I read in July, and I feel so conflicted about this book. I think I need my coffee when I talk about this book because, oh my gosh, I just take a sip and hope it will give me the strength to talk about this book. Okay, I think I can talk about this book now. And the book I'm talking about is Between the Devil and the Sea by, I wrote it down, Chani, Lynn, Feener. I would have never been able to remember that name. And Between the Devil and the Sea is an dark romance. I picked it up because of curiosity, I think. and because I wanted to read something totally different, and it definitely delivered on that one, but I feel so conflicted about this book because it's about a detective named Shade, and Shade and Gale, his partner, are sent to a planet to investigate in a series of murders. All the murder victims are actually people that did really horrible and bad things to other people, and no one knew about it. Only with the corpses there comes some sort of file from the killer with all the dark deeds they did. And let's say they did really horrible things, and that's why the killer killed them in the end. And Detective Shade is a cheetah, which basically means he can feel the emotions or see the real emotions of other people. It's described as some sort of everyone wears a mask, and sometimes this mask doesn't fit with the feelings the person is actually feeling. So you would see a person staring straight ahead, and then you would get glimpses of the person laughing inside. And yeah, it's the reason why Detective Shade is on the force and why he is a detective, because his talent is really strong and he has a lot of trouble to deal with his skills. It's way stronger than with other cheetahs, and he has trouble to deal with it. He is on meds sometimes so that he doesn't feel the effects, but once he feels them, they come back even stronger. Anyway, that was really intriguing and that was really interesting. And then Apollo comes into the picture. He's a reporter, he writes about art, and he's actually the killer. And I'm not telling anything or not spoiling anything about the plot here because it's literally written on the blurb. But Apollo is the serial killer Shade is after. And for about 40% of the book, they have that cat and mouse play going, and I really liked how Apollo played Shade and kind of got closer to him. He gets totally obsessed with Shade and develops an obsession and wants to find out more about him and wants to get to know him. And at first, they even have a consensual sexual encounter. But then after the 40% mark, things change drastically. Shade is taken captive by Apollo, and yeah, from there on out it gets extremely dark. Read the trigger warnings, read the trigger warnings. I read them, but I still wasn't prepared on how dark it actually would get. And the thing about this book is, or the problem about this book, or I don't know, it's really crazy because at the end of the book I actually ship those two, even though Apollo is totally black. He's not morally grey, he's totally black. Shade is morally grey and turns morally black as well. I don't know how to describe it, but the thing is, this book messes with your head because at the end of it you're actually kind of shipping those two, and Apollo does so many horrible, really horrible things to Shade. And the thing is, Shade is attracted to him because he wouldn't have had that consensual scene with him at the beginning of the book if he wouldn't be attracted to him. But at the same time, he knows that what Apollo is doing is completely wrong. And oh god, I feel so conflicted about this book. It was horrible, it was disgusting, it was totally out of my comfort zone. I was out of my depth with this book, but at the same time I read it in the span of not even 24 hours because I just wanted to know how it would end. And it's a dark romance, and it's MM, and it's violent and cruel, but it's also good. I think the author did a really good job at showing Shade's conflicted emotions and showing that he doesn't want to be with Apollo, but he's still attracted to him, if that makes any sense. I can't talk about this book. I feel so conflicted about this book. It was so out of my comfort zone. I was so out of my depth. I never read a book like that before. I'm not sure if I want to read a book like that ever again. I doubt it. Yeah. Anyway, in its weird and twisted and horrible way, it was good. I rated it 4.5 paws, which is a pretty high rating because fact is I paged through it and I wanted to know what would happen next. And I like the world building. I really wish we would have gotten a little bit more world building because it sounded really interesting with the different alien species and everything. But then the focus was on the carnal part and the sexual part of the book. And since this wasn't, my kind of jam, I don't know. Very conflicted about this book. Very, very conflicted. I think I'll leave it at that. I hope I will be able to write a review about it and that I will be able to express myself better in that review. Let's see if I can do that. I will link it down below once I wrote a review about it, and hopefully my review will be more comprehensible than what I just said now. Okay, way too dark for me. Totally out of my depth. Not a book I would pick up again, but I somehow paged through it. It's like a car accident. You just have to look at it, even though you know you shouldn't. Yeah. Anyway, those were the 5 books I read in July. They were all very different. I read in so many different genres, and I enjoyed most of the books I read. They were great. Some really pushed my boundaries of being comfortable with what I read. Others made me think a lot, and well, others made me happy, and I think it were a lot of darker books. Even Heartstopper was a little bit darker than usual. So I think that says a lot about the mood I had in July. Yeah, anyway, that's it with my wrap up. I won't say more because this video is probably already way too long. I just want to know what you read in July. Which kind of books did you pick up? Did you have a good reading month? Did you read many books? Are you a stress reader like me as well? Or do you need time to read and to digest the books you read? Yeah. I think that's it for now. I'm already at the ending of my video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're still healthy and safe. Take care and see you around the next time. Bye!